In the know, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
I don't worry one bit about Kirk, even in game if he's missed a throw or two. They all have their own stories, and it doesn't change at all. My intent with the very next play call or 5 play calls after that. The expectation is that he's going to drop back, find the open man, and deliver the football like he's done a lot this year. I continue to think he does a great job avoiding sacks and using the throwaway as a drive extending type play, trying to keep us out of some of those long yardage situations that can be pretty catastrophic for an offense.
These Monday press conferences on Zoom now, that started during the pandemic. They used to have the media come in to the practice facility. Now people can just kind of roll out of bed, KOC can, it looked like he was almost in like his home office there, just puts a backdrop up that says Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. He's just wearing boxer briefs or something.
It's not the old days, man. It's not the old days.
No, it's not, when you'd have to trudge through the snow on a Monday to go pepper Brad Childress with questions about why did you punt on 4th and 10 down 14 against the Titans in the fourth quarter.
Barefoot, uphill.
I drove by Winter Park the other day when I was driving around, and I was like, I can't believe that this is where an NFL franchise held their facilities for 20, 30 years? I don't know how long it was there.
It's like early 80s, right?
Okay, so 20, 30 years.
To the Super Bowl.
It was pretty glorious in the 80s into the early 90s. It was a nice facility, right? And then much like with all sports facilities, it's like total side street here, and then we can get into the show. But I wonder, some of these $1 billion, $2 billion palaces we're building as stadiums, we need state-of-the-art, updated, modern stadiums. Well, technology is evolving much faster now than it was between 1980 and 2010 when those stadiums became outdated. So aren't some of these stadiums just going to be super outdated again in 10 years?
That all depends on the time period, because I'll give you the perfect example. Target Center is beyond repair now. It was built in '89. The X was built in 2000, and it's still fantastic. So I think it depends on era when it's built. I think US Bank Stadium should have a good 40-year run of being pretty nice still, because I think that they have. I think the question is, can you adapt it as well to technology?
Okay, that's a fair point.
And unlike the Wolves, don't put more seats upstairs than you do downstairs. Use a little bit of that common sense, huh?
Yes. This is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. The most listened to Vikings podcast in all of America. Thank you guys for helping us chart top 10 on Apple a couple times in the last few weeks. It's kind of cool to see this podcast up there with Barstool podcasts and ESPN and NFL media and things like that. Just a few idiots talking about the Vikings on a regular basis. Or are you getting ready to wave the flag?
Should we do
for
it?
That? Sure.
Should
okay.
we do it? Yeah. That deserves it.
Hold your nose.
I saw someone on Vikings Reddit complaining, Purple Daily, I don't listen to that show because that stupid Ode to Joy song they play. Sorry.
Wow.
Cool. Then get lost. You don't deserve to celebrate with us when the Vikings win games and when we chart on the Apple Football Podcast.
That goes back to the Wild.
It is. It's actually, it's a wild celebration from 10 years ago on the old radio show. But the show is presented by our friends at TCL. No matter what you watch, TCL has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. And TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances. TCL brings you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. I think Surly brings you joy and simplicity and a refreshing feeling in your body when the Vikings win and you celebrate with one of those before I die tall boys.
That's well put. That is well put. In fact, Surly brings you the ultimate fulfillment. If you're looking for a beer and you want a good beer, you want a great beer, and a family of beers that offers you a variety of different choices, Surly Brewing is the place to go. Again, you could still get, we found out, third level of US Bank Stadium before I die at the game. But if you're enjoying the game on the couch, you know what? You got plenty of choices. Surly Brewing, we appreciate their support. And most importantly, personally, I appreciate their flavor.
Here's my question for you guys today to start with. And we'll get to the pigskin pecking order, where do the Vikings rank, all that stuff. But today, as we sit here, Kirk Cousins has been incredible in close fourth quarter games. In the fourth quarter, he's been incredible. But overall, he's having one of the worst seasons of his career. And Sunday against the Jets was kind of just, he was only pressured on like 35% of dropbacks, which is still like fairly high, but he was clean pocket for a lot of that game and struggled to move the ball. That's a great secondary. But when they needed that 75-yard drive in the fourth quarter, whatever it was, and he puts a ball right on the button, Justin Jefferson, like, he's been great when they've needed him. But part of the reason why they haven't been able to create separation in these games is because he and the offense stall out for periods, and they have to get all frenetic in the fourth quarter to pull out the victory.
Yep.
So he's actually outside the top 20 in a lot of key quarterback rankings and measurements. QBR, passer rating, expected points added, Football Outsiders DVOA, yards per attempt. Like, we're talking career worst in a lot of these categories. So there's another level to Kirk's game. He's reaching it in the fourth quarter, which is great, and that's why they're pulling out some of these games. But there's another level to his game and the offense that we haven't seen yet. If he hits that level, and we're in December, January now, so if you're going to hit that level, this would be the time to start hitting it, right? If he gives you basically the Eli Manning run in 2007 or 11, or maybe even more notably, the Joe Flacco run in 2012, where Flacco was just kind of a pedestrian. He was year 5 in the league, just kind of a pedestrian. He was just a guy at quarterback, right? And then all of a sudden, January hits, and Joe Flacco goes 11 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 117.2 passer rating, 300 yards a game, bonkers in the playoffs. If Kirk flips the switch like Eli or Joe Flacco, do the Vikings win the Super Bowl?
They certainly can. And I'll believe that run when I see it. Like, I'm not going to predict it, but yes, if they do that, if you think about the way that they're coached, and again, I'll go back to what we talked about on Mackey and Judd today, is the playoffs are about being prepared and winning individual games. So it's not a season of games, it's individual games, it's coaching, it's matchups. But if Kirk can flip that switch, which would, clearly be a switch we haven't seen him being close to flipping for entire games in 2022 thus far, can they win a Super Bowl? Yes. I mean, they also need their defense to obviously hold up as well. But can Kevin O'Connell get Kirk to that point? Like, to me, what makes the season so intriguing and interesting is the unknowns and the check marks that we are seeing, right, in various places. I mean, I never thought Kirk could be this good consistently under pressure in the fourth quarter. But boy, would that be interesting to see if he went on a Eli Manning type of run here with the receiving core that he has. I would certainly not dismiss a run to the Super Bowl if he could do that.
I mean, just looking at what both those guys did in the 2007, 2012 years, I know Eli did it twice and the second time in 2011. Eli Manning was not good in 2007. He led the league in picks. He really, really struggled, but he got hot. And I think there was also a perception that Eli was kind of flirting with being a bust at that point. He was a first-round pick. He got off to a horrible start. He threw a ton of picks in his NFL career. He had already been to the playoffs, I believe, twice going into that 2007 run where he just had a couple duds in the wild card round. So there was a perception around him that, yeah, he's clearly never going to be as good as his brother. This is just a guy who gets a little pass happy and can throw a lot of picks. I think the comp is probably more towards Eli than it is to Joe Flacco. Flacco was a consistent playoff performer. Like, even before the 2012 run, and that is his most infamous run, he had some runs where he went to the AFC title game. He had beaten Brady in New England before, and his what he can hang his hat on the most is that he was a playoff performer, and that 2012 run was so awesome. So there definitely is comps, and sometimes I think we now get stuck in this that, all right, so Kirk's probably in that same bin, right, of an Eli, Joe Flacco, tier 2, tier 3 quarterback, and because those two did it, I think then we sometimes get trapped in the fact, well, then Kirk can do it. So can he do it?
Or Stafford did it.
Yeah.
Because Stafford did it last year. and it kind of rose up. By the way, you're right about Flacco too. I didn't realize he had, and part of this was he was riding some great defenses too. He had a couple playoff wins where he was just in the car, but he had 5 playoff wins before the run in 2012 where they would win a game and get bounced or whatever it was. So he had kind of shown up a few times in those moments. But I think to the point you're making, Dex, if Flacco, Eli, and Matthew Stafford did it, where they just, hey guys, you don't have to do it every year, but once, just play your best football in January, late December, January. It doesn't guarantee that Kirk's going to do it, but I think it gives you hope that, okay, here's some quarterbacks that are kind of in that same, they're kind of fringe top 10 guys, or maybe not even close to the top 10 at times. And then they have a switch that they can flip. Now, the Giants and the Ravens in those years, and even like the Rams last year, there was also a defensive switch that was flipped on the other side of the football where, okay, Aaron Donald and that defensive front are going to make the opposing team's life miserable, or that Michael Strahan defensive line from 2007 and some of the pass rushers they had, and the Ravens defenses have always been stout. But I guess to answer my own question, assuming some defensive improvement, if we can get that first half against the Jets version of the defense a little more often. I'm not saying they have to be the best defense in the league, but can you keep holding strong in the red zone? Can you stay strong on third downs? If Kirk goes on a run, like a Flacco-like run, this team gets to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they outduel Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl, but if he plays like that, they don't lose at home. And I think they could go on the road and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's possible Dallas would wipe out Philadelphia before you even have to deal with that. And then you'd get home playoff games the entire way. So I think like maybe the Cousins Crusaders out there, you might want to put earmuffs on here for just a moment, because I am going to say something that's mildly critical of Kirk Cousins. But the Vikings need more than they've been getting from Cousins from now until whenever their run is over, if they want to make a run. It's great that he's showing up and he's putting on the chains, and he is Kirko chains in the fourth quarter. And he has come time and time again with his best play in the fourth quarter. And that's awesome. But like you saw against Dallas and Philadelphia, there's probably going to be another game or two like that if you wait 2.5 hours to flip the switch, the game's already going to be over. So I think it's fair to ask, listen, thank you for showing up in the fourth quarter for the first time regularly since they signed that contract in 2018. And Kevin O'Connell has been an amazing, puller of the strings here. But there's another level that this offense has to get to in addition to the defense, and Cousins is the one that's going to drive that. Your offensive line has been better. Darrisaw will come back. Thielen's not going to go back into a time machine and be the guy he was 5 years ago. Cousins needs to find another level beyond the fourth quarter heroics if they want to make a run in January. So that is my mild criticism of Kirk Cousins.
If you're playing potentially San Francisco, Philadelphia, or Dallas, you're going to have far more of a complete game from this entire team, including Kirk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was to have a playoff checklist, if I was to sit down right now and do a playoff checklist of things that you need to fix and be more consistent, Kirk is on it. My top thing, though, is this, especially with the Cowboys or San Fran. You've got to stop the Pollards and the McCaffreys and the Debos. Because, what Pollard did here is very real. Like, that's what they can do. And so my question is, as a coaching staff, can you devise a plan? And it might be playing Asamoah more. I don't know.
I was going to say, is Jordan Hicks going to be stopping some of these? He wasn't stopping Pollard.
No,
that's
but
sure.
Pollard, if you have that player, and those guys aren't on every team, no question about it. The Jets didn't have one, for instance. But if you have that player, my question is, can you stop them to allow Kirk to cook to actually give you a chance to win? Because you can't be hemorrhaging yards and points.
Mm-hmm.
That's Dallas basically fulfilled what a lot of teams can't do, which is, we're not just going to get yards on your ass. We're going to score a lot of points. And so it's again, a complementary football thing where Kirk needs, if you're going to get the best of Kirk, then on the flip side, you've got to get the best of the defense, far superior than what we have seen, especially with those backs that can catch and run.
Yeah. Well, let me frame the question a different way too, because like Dallas hung 40 points on you in that game and exposed a lot of flaws in your defense. But how many, two-part question, how many times have the Vikings gotten hot maybe on an opening drive or something, or you see the way that they play in the fourth quarter offensively, like, wow, they snapped out of it, and think, boy, they probably should have scored 38 or 40 points themselves in this game.
Sure.
What are the main reasons why the Vikings haven't been able to just like put together a full offensive performance for 3 hours? The closest we've seen is like the first half of the Green Bay game, and then they disappeared in the second half.
Yep.
But they still hung on to win. Maybe the Patriots game, where they scored, I think, a touchdown in every quarter of that game against a really good defense.
Yep.
But most games have been, they disappear for like 2 quarters or the third quarter at the very least. What are the 2 or 3 main reasons why that happens?
I think the most important thing too is, and this just goes back to Sunday's Jets game, the most important thing beyond points itself is this. You've got to retain the football too. Like in a playoff game, go back and look at the amount of 3 and outs. There are way too many, and you won't win. Like so I think it's not only can you continue to pile up points and play well there, but can you just retain the football? Because I will say this: if you play a Dallas in the playoffs and you're like, well, we went 3 and out again, you're going to lose. Like you've got to have the ball. The Jets game became a problem. Like you can't be. That was very 2021, like in my opinion. So, I guess to come back to your question, I would start with this: how do you just maintain the ball, and then if you can score, awesome, you should. Yeah. But the time of possession, I think, was it the third quarter? I mean, they basically ran no plays. They were
they had. I think the Vikings had 4 3 and outs down the stretch. I think in the second half they had 4 3 and outs in that game.
That's not doable.
And again, like the defense needs to be better, but this was a thing that the Vikings led the NFC in 3 and outs last year offensively, and it just puts your defense right back on the field, and their offense gets to we're gonna. The more we're out here, the more we're going to finally figure out a way to make it click. I'll give you another one here. Again, some mild criticism of old Kirky boy here, okay? So this has been a thing in his career with the Vikings.
Yep.
Is it all his fault? No, not necessarily. But since Kirk Cousins signed in 2018, only 2 other NFC teams have more 3 and outs over that stretch. The Commanders and the Cardinals. So some of it's, conservative play calling under Mike Zimmer and Kubiak. Some of it's bad offensive line play or a holding penalty on Oli Udoh or something. Now it's 1st and 17 or whatever it is. But the 3 and outs have been a problem since Kirk Cousins signed in 2018. It's a theme, and he is part of the common denominator. So I think we can say 2 things here. There's some gray area. He has been as good or better in the fourth quarter in key moments as he's ever been in his career in these 12 games. And they need more from him for the totality of a 3-hour football game than they've been getting so far. Offensive line's been better. Justin Jefferson's amazing. Dalvin Cook has been Dalvin Cook. Kevin O'Connell has raised the water level here. The scheme is great. This thing has to click more early in the game, or they will have a game flow like Philadelphia and Dallas happen again, where it's too late to save it in the second half.
You have to look, I think, at what's obtainable and what's achievable to happen here. So, yes, it'd be great if the Vikings offense was top 5, right? Just methodical and hitting touchdowns all the time. I don't think they're just going to flip a switch and do that necessarily. So there's 2 ways to look at this. There's 2 things I think you can probably try to do that are obtainable. Number 1, can you just hold the ball longer, to Judd's point? Can you just have a time of possession? Can you chunk more time off the clock, keep your offense on the field more? That one's probably the more obtainable factor. And can they limit the 3 and outs to have more sustained drives? Great. The other one, which I don't think is obtainable, because they haven't really showed that they can do this, can you have home run plays? If you're not going to march down the field, if you're not going to chew off clock, is there a way for you to have home run plays? 50-yard bombs to Jefferson, Dalvin Cook ripping off 60-yard runs. I think that part's a little less obtainable because it's hard to ask a team to, hey, go get me a 60-yard touchdown play once a game. It's a little difficult, but those are the 2 avenues you have to fix. Like the Vikings defense isn't just automatically going to start allowing just 250 yards a game. They're going to allow 350 to 400 yards a game. That's who they are. Can they be better in the red zone? Of course they could. You have to look, I think, at the offensive defensive side and say, what is something that we actually can fix and that is obtainable to execute the game plan?
And I don't want chunk plays would be great, but I think what I'm talking about is you need to hold the football. Like, you need to keep your defense off the field. You're good enough offensively to sustain drives. Like, I am more perplexed by the lack at times of sustained drives than actual scores. I get you're not going to score touchdowns. This team could score more, but I am just simply talking about the fundamental aspect of an 8-play drive instead of a 3-play drive, a 12-play drive instead of a 4-play drive. But this gets into a very nuanced world too, you guys, of how tricked up Kirk is. Kirk's a car. O'Connell's got the car, and he's tricking this car up.
There's a spoiler, some rims.
Yeah, and look,
some Nas.
And I mean, it's Nas, exactly. I love the Nas. But if we look,
he hits that Nas button in the fourth quarter.
but watch these games. I mean, this is something that we talked about going back to the summertime. Kirk was going to need to be tricked up because Kirk Cousins fundamentally, as is he's a heat-seeking statistical missile, but that doesn't necessarily win football games. So if you go back and watch, there are times, there is no question in my mind to go back to game flow. When the game flow starts to go sideways, watch what O'Connell does. He basically calls Kubiak plays for Kirk. There was one again on Sunday. I think it was a second or third down and something long. And they went with essentially a check down that they allowed to Hawkinson. Now, check downs, yes, are quick, but the key here is there are times when O'Connell purposely has everyone go past the sticks, so Kirk can't check it down. Mm-hmm. Or the guy who stays in just stays blocking. The point is, we are talking about a scientific quarterback experiment here. Like, this is really an experiment. To a certain degree, Matthew Stafford probably was too.
Yeah, it is, and now Stafford's had some major injury issues in the offensive lines, but now that O'Connell's gone, it kind of makes you wonder. I think Sean McVay is a legend, but it kind of makes you wonder, boy, Kevin O'Connell might have been more of a driving force behind the scenes with the Rams than people, because initially it was, they're just hiring like Sean McVay's lackey that didn't call plays. But
right.
Now that you've gotten a feel for O'Connell's leadership, the way that he's
good point.
Building relationships with players, there is a whisper factor about him, what he did with Stafford last year and what he's doing with Kirk in key moments this year. Mm-hmm. And this is a different conversation for another day, but before our show started today, I know this is going to shock you guys, but I was sparring with some Cousins Crusaders on Twitter who pulled an old tweet back from earlier this offseason. And there's plenty. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to pull incorrect tweets from any of us on this show, but I had said at some point, somebody mentioned like Tannehill and Derek Carr. And I said, I think those guys are better than Cousins. Like, we can split hairs. They're all kind of in the same tier going into the season, but I would take Tannehill and Carr, especially Carr for less money, over Cousins. I said that months ago. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of throwing it back in my face like, oh, look at what an idiot. Look what he said. Well, actually, if you look at the rankings, expected points added, Football Outsiders, QBR, passer rating, yards per attempt, Tannehill and Carr, and a bunch of other quarterbacks are better than Cousins this season. So it kind of makes you wonder, and this is going to be triggering for some people, boy, if Kevin O'Connell is getting this in the fourth quarter and this many wins out of a Kirk Cousins-led team, no coach has ever gotten, well, they did win 10 with Cousins in 2019, but that was in a full season. So assuming they win another game here or two, we're going to reach uncharted team wins territory with Cousins. We're seeing uncharted fourth quarter play from Cousins, right? And I don't think anyone would sit here and say that he is like one of the 8 to 10 most talented, gifted quarterbacks in the league when you include athleticism and, prowess to just will a team to a win like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, right? That at some point, I'm not saying today or maybe even next year, but what could Kevin O'Connell do with a Ferrari at quarterback?
Well,
if he's tricking up the Camry, what could he do with the Ferrari, right?
You think O'Connell don't think that?
And we don't have to have this whole conversation now because they're in the middle of a 10-2 season, and Kirk has been a huge reason for that.
Right.
But it will be interesting at some point what he does with a Ferrari.
But this team is, for lack of a better term, this team is tricked up. And it's been great fun to watch. And that's not an insult.
Yeah.
That's not an insult. It's been coached really well.
Speaking of Cousins Crusaders, by the way, so we have a group of Cousins Crusaders, as we've lovingly coined them on the show here. The crazy Canadian Cousins Crusaders of Purple Daily. They reached out to us and they asked, hey, listen, all right, can we bring everyone together? You guys have come a long way, and I would argue that Kirk has come a long way, and so therefore we are praising him a lot more this season, right? But let's bring everyone together. Let's celebrate this incredibly fun season by asking Purple Daily listeners to donate to Kirk Cousins charity. And we said, that sounds like an amazing cause. Let's do it. Let's go to kirkcousins.org, click the donate button, and if you have $5, $50, $5,000, whatever, if you're a high roller out there, you can donate very easily on kirkcousins.org. And all you have to do is just to make sure that they know who it's coming from. The Cousins Crusaders of Purple Daily. Mm-hmm. There's a little box where you can type in a note when you make a donation. But we had a group of Cousins Crusaders, and they're coining themselves, and I love this, the crazy Canadian Cousins Crusaders up in Winnipeg, led by our friend Ray. Said, hey, why don't you guys have been hating on this guy for a long time. Let's bring some people together and raise some money for his charity. And we're wide open to that. kirkcousins.org, click the donate button, and just say that you're donating on behalf of the Cousins Crusaders of Purple Daily. So, Judd, you got $5 on you. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is?
We can all pull together. You know what? In this case, good cause.
Yes. You know what else is a good cause? Park Tavern, the official sports bar of Sports Dad, based in St. Louis Park.
It's a good cause. And right now, from our friends at Park Tavern, I have a good offer. That's this Black Friday gift card. You're saying, Judd, Black Friday's done. What are you talking about? Well, if you can see here, it says buy a $100 gift card and get a $50 bonus gift card. Well, right now, if you went and bought this gift card, you'd only get a $25 bonus unless you go into Park Tavern, Louisiana Avenue South in St. Louis Park, and say, I heard about this gift card on Score North, and Sports Dad said that I can get the full $50 bonus. Then you're going to get it for the rest of the month. Park Tavern is a great place, by the way, to hold your holiday party, to hold a gathering, fantasy league draft, birthday. Guys, step up to the plate here and be a hero. Because when you call Park Tavern, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get an evening of enjoyment. It's got bowling. It's got 2 bars. It is a massive space. It's as easy as this. 952-929-6810 is the number. 952-929-6810. Or visit parktavern.net to make your reservations now. Or just go belly up to the bar and enjoy a surly. Park Tavern has something for everybody. And guess what? You might see Sports Dad there because it's the official sports bar of Sports Dad.
Amen. The official dog food and pet food in general of Mackie and Judd and Purple Daily is Nutrisource. Great for gut and digestion health of your loving 4-legged friends here. This is Maya Mackey. You'll see on the YouTube channel. She gets very, very excited when we feed her a couple half cups, I should say, of the Nutrisource chicken and rice. There's the training treats, the kombucha sort of broth mix as well. Judd, Maya loves all of it. I can tell you that.
Stella is very upset right now, and I don't blame her one bit because guess what? Sports Dad, he's not doing his job. Those training treats, training rewards treats, guess what? We just ran out, and somebody's in trouble at the Zolgad house here in SLP, and I'm going to tell you, it's not Dawn, and it's not that little dog. Pop is in real trouble until he gets more of those training rewards treats because my little girl, she loves them. She loves the food too. But guess who's got to get some more training treats? That'd be me.
Did you dub yourself as Pop? Did Stella call you it? Did Dawn? Like how did Pop come to be in your?
I dubbed myself as Pop
Got it.
Because Dad just seems so. Dad seems, I don't know, sort of trite. Everyone's dad. Pop sounds like I'm an old man, which I sort of like, so I went with Pop.
That's okay. Love the nickname there. Pop Zolgad. NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a Nutrisource bag of goods near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com. Before we get to our Pigskin pecking order rankings and Judd guesses the PFF grades, saw this tweet from the host of the Locked On Packers podcast, Peter
Yep.
These poor
I saw this.
Packer fans,
Just
man.
stop.
Oh,
Yeah, just go.
man.
I saw it too.
So
Go watch the Bucks. Bucks are good.
I don't think this is tongue in cheek. I think this is legit. He says, "Here's the most straightforward path for the Packers to make the playoffs. They must win out." Okay. And then the Giants either lose out or just beat the Colts. And Washington beats the Giants but goes 0-3 versus Cleveland, San Francisco, Dallas, all of which seems plausible. 6 seed possible if Carolina beats Seattle. Did you catch all that? So here's the path for the Packers to make the playoffs.
I saw your tweet and I saw this yesterday.
They must win out. All right, so that's a given, right? They're going to win out. And then the Giants have to lose out or just beat the Colts, and Washington beats the Giants but goes 0-3 against Cleveland, San Francisco, Dallas, all of which seems plausible. And then they can get the 6th seed if Carolina beats Seattle. If you're wondering how your Packer fan friends and family members are doing today.
This is the second consecutive week that a team has gotten excited about beating the Bears. The Jets were like, oh, Mike White was unbelievable. We beat the Bears. Now the Packers come back from down like 13 to beat the Bears. And now they're talking about if we could just win the rest of our games. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Bears are designed to suck. Like, why would anybody get excited about, I mean, Packer fans, go watch the Bucks. Go watch the Brewers in the spring. It's over.
It is probably hard to cope here. Like, there's a lot of Packer fans, especially if you grew up, you were born in the 80s or the early 90s or the late 90s or something. Like, this doesn't compute. All you know is 13-3 basically. So I do feel kind of bad here just watching these guys trying to figure out their feelings.
I don't feel bad for them for 1 second.
Well, so if you carry the 4 and if the Giants this, that, well, if Washington, no.
You know what?
It's not happening.
Get excited for your team when they deserve it. Otherwise, just bail. It's over. It's through.
Don't have to bail.
I bail on them. No, I mean bail on the season.
Okay.
Like last year, I bailed on the season.
And you start looking into how can they be better next season in the future. Yes.
I'm not saying stop being a fan. I'm saying be a realistic fan. And then, yes, start talking about the draft.
Of course, we were getting ripped for we moved like multiple years down the road around this time last year. And we're like, okay, how do you blow this thing sky high and be good in 2023? And here they are 10-2, and we were wrong. But
this is fun, but I still like what the Bears are doing, you guys. I like stripping it down, and they might have
Justin Fields looks like he's legit, so it's good for him.
I'm just saying the Super Bowl formula sometimes can involve this. I'm intrigued by Ryan Poles' moves.
It is interesting. Like, I would rather be the 10-2 team with a good young offensive line, Justin Jefferson. So I would not trade places with the Bears. But if I'm another franchise, if I'm the Packers right now, and I'm coming to the end of the road with Aaron Rodgers, there's a lot of teams that would love to trade places with a 3-win Bears team because they may have nailed quarterback.
Yes.
And they've got, like, I think the most cap space of any team going into the offseason. So they could take a leap next year, and then boom, all of a sudden they got a 5-year window to do some damage. And the best quarterback they've had since Sid Luckman, potentially. So, all right, let's rank some NFL teams here, boys. Every single week, it's our Pigskin pecking order where we rank the top 10 teams in the NFL according to us. The Vikings Twitter CEO, that would be me. The Purple Daily Chief Beverage Distribution Officer, that would be Judd, and the Clickbait Officer, that would be Declan. So we all rank our top 10 teams. We see where the Vikings fall. They've been in the 10 all season because they've been awesome. We'll start with the number 1 team in the NFL. It's now the Eagles, boys. We have bumped the Chiefs out of the number 1 spot following their loss, and the Eagles as the number 1 team. Feel free to chime in here. Otherwise, we can save our comments till the end. Chiefs still holding at number 2, collectively. Cowboys up to 3, hanging 33 points in the 4th quarter on the Colts. The Buffalo Bills at number 4. The Cincinnati Bengals jumping up to number 5, now 8-4 on the season. We have the Minnesota Vikings at number 6. San Francisco 49ers 7th. Miami Dolphins 8. Baltimore Ravens 9. And the Seattle Seahawks as the 10th best team in the NFL now. Where do we have the Vikings? Declan had them 5th. Judd had them 6th. I had them 7th. So we have them just on the fringes of the top 5 after a win against the Jets. So,
yep.
What do you make of these? And just for fun here, just pull this up here. We all had the Eagles number 1. Declan and I had the Chiefs 2. Judd, you had them 3. Judd, you had the Cowboys 2. Yes. Declan and I had the Cowboys each at 4. The Niners now with their third string quarterback. Judd had them 5. I have them 6. Declan has them 8. But we all ranked the same 10 teams, just in slightly different orders. So,
as far as San Fran goes, this was a tough one to rank because, to Phil's point, they're down to their third QB right now, and we have no clue. I mean, the only thing we know is Trey Lance is done, Garoppolo's done. Yeah. Is Purdy going to be the guy going forward? Are they going to come up with something else? I don't know. I love their team, but the fact that they don't have a quarterback definitely dropped them a little bit. Dallas, I put 2 because they are right now, at least in this span of games, kicking teams' asses. Like the Colts stink. I get that, okay? But Phil just read that stat. What, 33 points in the fourth quarter? They put up a 50-plus burger. That's impressive. They beat the Vikings in US Bank Stadium by 37. That's impressive. But there are definitely some unknowns here, and I think we all agree the thing about Dallas that scares me is not so much their team as their coach. I was a little bit uncertain, but since Kansas City lost to the Bengals, I decided that at least for a week I would put Dallas second. I was pretty confident in my Vikings ranking, by the way.
Yeah. So some of these are tough. Like, I get that we have the Bills 2 slots ahead of the Vikings, and the Vikings beat the Bills, but I don't think you can, especially in the NFL, I don't think you can play the
right.
Well, this team beat that team, because then you wind up with just an impossible zigzag puzzle. Teams beat teams in the NFL. I think if you played that Vikings-Bills game in Buffalo 10 times, the Bills probably win 7 or 8 times in Buffalo. The Vikings might win 5 or 6 times in Minnesota. I think the Bills are better than the Vikings right now. I think the Bengals with Joe Burrow are very dangerous. Look what they just did this weekend. But the Vikings are in here fighting, man. The Super Bowl winner probably comes out of this group, unless you think Tom Brady, who pulled magic out again last night.
I don't.
If there's another team. So somebody on this screen is winning the Super Bowl, and the Vikings are very much on this list, right in the middle of it.
I'm glad the Vikings aren't in the AFC. I'll just say that. I think it'd be so much more difficult for them to make their hay in the playoffs if they are in the AFC. The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, the Dolphins, I just think there's so many more better teams collectively in the AFC. The path's a lot easier in the NFC.
Yeah, so right now, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, that's 4, and then Dolphins, Ravens, that's we're missing 1 AFC team in here. Otherwise, you get 6 in here. All of these games would be really, really hard. And even the NFC games, if you have to face the Seahawks in the first round or a Tom Brady Buccaneers team in the first round or something, although they're going to win the division most likely, so you probably wouldn't face them. But I don't think that, even if you face the Commanders in the first round, that's not an easy game, but it's easier than the AFC games, to Declan's point. So there you go. That's your pigskin pecking order here.
Football.
Ranking the top 10 teams in the NFL. Judd, would you like to take a stab at the PFF grades?
Football.
All right. I wrote these down yesterday. I have not looked, but I do have three names written down for offense and defense as far as and this was difficult, especially offensively. I struggled here.
Well, it's funny. That's the thing, because offensively, it looked so hard at times for them, but they hung 27 points on one of the best defenses in the league.
I know, but they didn't have a lot of guys have great days, which I ordinarily can always start with a guy who just had a great day. Feel like no one in particular had a great day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so we'll start with offense, and the parameters here are obviously all of the starters are eligible every week, and then we generally draw the line at if a backup played 20 or more snaps that player is also eligible to be on this list. So,
All right.
This is Judd's eye test versus the PFF all 22 grading here. Who are the 3 best offensive players for the Vikings?
My first guess, Dalvin Cook.
He was the 2nd worst graded player on offense for the Vikings.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he dropped a pass, but I didn't think he was that bad. Okay. Wow. Now I'm really
He's shook now. He is
now
shook.
I'm shook.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
We're
You know
already
what?
off
That's why I have
script
notes.
here.
But that's why I have notes written down, because I can now just stop being shook and go back to my second guess. Brian O'Neill.
He was the number 1 graded offensive player. All right. Judd's back. He's back.
My third guess. He did drop a pass, but he also had a few really, really big plays. PFF type plays. PFF appreciates these plays from Justin Jefferson. Okay, that's BS.
He was the 5th highest graded player offensively. He bobbled a couple passes in there. Let's see. They didn't love him in run blocking, so that factors in a little bit. And I think there was an opening for him to throw a pass on that play where he tucked and ran it.
8 yards.
But there was a big play. Somebody broke the all 22 down. There was a big play out there if he would have thrown it to Dalvin, but he didn't.
Or Cook would have dropped it, since he was the 2nd worst graded player. I can't stand him now. No. All right. So I'm off script here. I've got 1 right, and I have 2 guesses. I have 2 guesses I have to get right now. All right. I'm going to go back to the old standby. I'm going to go back to offensive linemen. I'm going to throw a Hail Mary pass here, because I think he actually graded out okay in this game. Hail Mary pass involves Ed Ingram.
God, dude. Oh my God. He was the 4th best graded player. And you've now been eliminated, but you had it all the way up until Ed Ingram.
Yeah.
Blake Brandel was the 2nd highest graded player.
That's a bunch of crap. PFF, he got help. That's a bunch of crap from PFF.
He was a road grader in the run blocking game, is what they said.
I would never guess Blake Brandel.
And in terms of pressures allowed, he did allow 4 pressures, which was the most.
Is Darius on trouble?
Wouldn't go that far.
No, thank you.
And then Kirk Cousins was the 3rd highest graded player for the Vikings in that game.
Really?
Yeah.
What is there any? What's the substance behind that?
Well, let me pull him up here for you. So let's go with.
Thank you.
Just some of the passing grades here. So, yeah, he was. Like, what do you look at? What kind of information do you want?
Well, why? I guess the eye test didn't say that he had a great game. So, like, what did they see? Does it make it clear what they saw that made him?
I think it's hard, because I think he didn't throw an interception, so he didn't hit. This is one of those kind of classic Cousins games where he wasn't good, but it wasn't really his fault necessarily, right? It was if the Jets secondary was blanketing receivers and there was nowhere to go with the ball.
He didn't have turnover-worthy plays. He didn't have shipwrecking plays. He wasn't effective, but he didn't drive the car into the ditch.
Yep. And so he gets credit for not crashing the car, basically.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
If you're wondering, just for fun here, let's see. Because the big matchup was, right, it was Sauce Gardner against Justin Jefferson.
It didn't develop, really.
Yeah.
Sauce there was only,
it looks like, and it wasn't like Cousins was actively hunting that matchup. There was 2 targets, Jefferson versus Sauce, 1 catch for 10 yards. It was a first down catch. Sorry, I did not mean to hit that buzzer.
At least through Pro Football Reference, when targeted, the Vikings were 3 of 5 against him for 21 yards. They completed 3 passes on 5 attempts for 21 yards. That was it.
Yeah.
No,
so they weren't exactly hunting him. So, okay, well, let's try the defense here, Judd. Who are the 3? I'll give you the 3 worst offensive players, too. It was Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and C.J. Ham. Actually, sorry, K.J. Osborne, Dalvin Cook, and Adam Thielen were the 3 lowest graded players. K.J. Osborne just hasn't really done it this year.
Made the big 4th down catch, but that was about it on Sunday, right?
He's had a couple plays here and there, but
He caught the touchdown against the Bears here. But yes, he has not been what we thought.
All right, so again, defense. We're looking for starters, and then anyone else that played 20 or more snaps is eligible for this discussion.
Okay, Cam Bynum.
Cam Bynum was the 6th highest graded defensive player.
All right. Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith is correct. He was the 3rd highest graded defensive player.
Okay, can I get an interpretation on snap count? Can I ask a snap count before this guess? How many snaps did Patrick Jones get?
20.
Okay, Patrick Jones.
He was the highest graded defensive player for the Vikings.
He's a good player. He can play.
You got to find that dude.
He's going to start at some point in time. Not right now, but he's going to start at some point in time. I like what he brings.
He had the sack. He had a couple other tackles. He was classified as having 3 stops in the game, which are basically
he's athletic,
thwarting a run.
He's good. That's what that's going to turn out to be a good Spielman pick. All right, the last one I will guess. I still have 2 incorrect guesses left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eric Kendricks.
4th. He's 4th highest graded player.
I felt like he had a good game.
Yeah, your radar is on 10 tackles, 5 stops. Although, again, when targeted in the passing game, 6 for 6, 51 yards. Not terrible. It was 8.5 yards per reception, but 60 yards after the catch. So you can, with Kendricks and Hicks, you could definitely put those guys in the spin cycle, man.
And the Jets don't have the personnel to do that exactly, but if you do, it's over. All right. So I've got 2 wrong. I've got one guess left. I'm going to guess Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson was kind of smack dab in the middle. This is the 2nd straight week that Kairis Tonga, 29 snaps, was one of the 3 highest graded players.
I'm writing him down. I'm guessing him no matter what next week.
Tonga time, man.
I was going to give you a referee spot and say dig deep for this 3rd clue, Judd, and I was hoping that was going to set you off, but
I wouldn't have guessed Tonga again.
The 3 lowest graded players were Caleb Evans, DJ Wanham, and Jordan Hicks on the day. Boy, Caleb Evans, and in fairness, I think he was concussed for part of the time he was out there. But 5 catches allowed for 131 yards.
They need to.
He gave up the 60-yarder on that one play.
I think
he did have a pass breakup.
I think the expectation is he's going to practice all week and be back against Detroit. Dantzler on Sunday.
Dantzler, yeah.
Now
Shelley Island was closed for business. 8 targets, 3 catches for 41 yards. He did allow a 31-yarder in there, but Shelley Island was mostly a couple breakups in that game, dude.
Did you guys see that O'Connell on his Zoom call with the press yesterday came out and immediately said, we're going to declare Caleb out for this game coming up against Detroit because concussion, blah, blah, blah. He's had 3 concussions since the Chicago game. So he's out. So someone tweeted that he wouldn't play, and Caleb Evans immediately tweeted back, news to me.
Well, yeah, because he hasn't come in yet, probably.
They hadn't told him yet. So
he's very active on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter.
Yeah. I think he's
news to me.
It's what can be news to you, the audience, is how much weight you can potentially lose. Not starting on Jan 1, but how about starting now? Let's get the train moving.
And the offer is there right now for my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers to do exactly that. Get started, as Phil just said, on your New Year's goals today. Join the program, award-winning, by the way, and save 50%. That's right. You can lose up to 10 pounds or more in the first 2 weeks and up to 2 pounds per week thereafter. So imagine getting to January 1st, you're feeling great. Imagine getting to springtime and all those clothes that maybe haven't fit for a few years, they all fit. It's this simple. 855-GO-LIVEA, livia.com, livea.com. If you're in the state, that's great, because there are nutrition centers that you can go to talk to your nutritionists and dietitians. If you're not, though, guess what? Virtual visits are an option. Find your way to losing weight through livia.com.
And thanks to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company as well for helping us grow our business over the last few years. They've been a great partner for us. They have been a partner of the Minnesota Timberwolves and other Minnesota sports teams as well. And they are a great partner and guiding hand for countless businesses in and around and outside the state of Minnesota. It's all about risk management, like having a great offensive line for your business. Find out about the 100+ years of great work Federated has done over since 1904 down in Owatonna, Minnesota. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. There's your daily Vikings entertainment fix on this Tuesday. Write that down, predictions and an accountability session. Also, don't forget to check out Before We Die with Jesse and Thor on the Purple Daily podcast feed and YouTube channel. Realistic Randy with Declan as well. And then Booney and I are going to sit down for a trenches discussion later on tonight that should go up on Wednesday morning. So that'll be coming at you here. 10-2 Minnesota Vikings back at you tomorrow here on Purple Daily.